All right, welcome back to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast. This is Chat and Chow, where we just have guests on around lunchtime and talk with you while we eat, while we hang out, and just talk about what's going on in life, what's going on in manufacturing, what's going on in our world. And the only catch is we got to have some positivity to it because the world is crazy enough as it is. And so we want to encourage you, not bring you down. So I'm Tony DeMakis with Alliance Specialties and Laser Sales, where we are mold makers that don't build molds. So we do everything but that. We do the things that you as mold makers or molders don't want to do. So mold finishing, including A1 down to paper finishes when it comes to polishing, laser welding, laser engraving, hot runner manifold cleaning, and preventative mold maintenance. And we also have the only American-made laser welding and engraving systems that are made specifically for tool rooms to help you with your repair. So anything we can do to help you out, we are happy to do so. But that's all you're going to get from me about me. That's not what we're here to talk about. So I'm really excited today because one of the biggest issues that is facing manufacturing in the United States right now is finding that next generation of skilled workers. They're just not there right now, and that's a problem. And it's been a problem for quite some time. And that's why I'm really excited to talk to my guest today, who is Tina Zwolinski from Skillsgapp. And she has created new ways to do things that are very unique. And I think it's going to change the industry for the better. So Tina, how are you?
Hello. Hi, Tony. Hello to everybody.
You doing good today?
Yes, I am doing good. Good day.
That's good. That's good. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get into any questions. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So if you're watching, which I hope you are, and you like what you're hearing, share it with somebody else. If you have a question, put it in the chat. We have prizes for the best questions, best comments, and we want to engage with you. So if there's any questions that you have, I know this is a really big hot topic in industry, in market right now. So we want to get as many people involved as possible. So if you have something that you'd like to share, please put it in the chat and we will jump to that question as soon as we're done talking. So Tina, tell us a little bit about you and what Skillsgapp is and how it got started.
Sure. So just so everyone knows what Skillsgapp is, and I'll jump into a little bit behind the scenes of how it came to be. But Skillsgapp, we're a tech company. We're a woman-owned tech company. And we develop games that are attracting and growing a qualified workforce, which for us, we had an ad agency, been in advertising for over 25 years. And our focus was really on generations. So we've worked with boomers, we've worked with millennials, and then entered Gen Z. And so we really fell in love with Gen Z. And for all of those who are listening that's a new term or always wondered kind of who is Gen Z? Gen Z is, they were born in around 1997. There's a couple year overlap there between generations. And kind of the cutoff is around 2010, 2012. So you're looking at like entering middle school, high school, college, entering the workforce between 2020 and 2030. So anybody listening to this call and thinking about who you're hiring now or who you're going to be hiring over the next 20 years, 10 years, Gen Z is the group that's coming in. So we fell in love with them. We have also done a lot of stigma reversal advertising, but at our core and behind the scenes, manufacturing's it goes to my heart. Like we've been doing economic development for a lot of manufacturers. I'm in South Carolina, so we are, we moved from all the textiles and now we're in automotive, life sciences. I grew up a baby of an aerospace engineer with Pratt & Whitney. I worked in the plant in the summers at in their manufacturing plants. And so that was always fun and they pay well.
Well, I think that's a misconception right there, right? That manufacturing doesn't pay very well and that it's not inclusive and you kind of just check two of those boxes right away. Yeah. We just talked to Brenda Clark from Hasco and she had a similar story where she started in a manufacturing company when she was 16 years old on the floor. And you're saying the same thing, right? Like that's where your journey kind of started. I don't want to make it a he, she movement kind of thing, but did you have any limitations or hurdles or obstacles getting into the industry as a female?
For that was high school, and no, it was a diverse workforce, and I loved it, because you think about how planes stay up in the sky, and here you see all the little details that go into making sure that plane stays up in the sky, and the speed and the efficiencies. And so it was really exciting, and they were always about, if you wanted to try something, just ask. And so, that was back in the 80s. And so, what was interesting is to look at what it was like to go into manufacturing then. You had the offices, but then you had the plant.
Right.
But, in South Carolina, going into BMW, if anybody's ever had the tour of the plant there, I mean, it is clean, it is high tech. And so a lot of that stigma that we were just talking about, and that we've worked with back in advertising time frame, it just was a lot of like Gen X, our generation,
Yep.
has that stigma of what it's like in a plant. It's dark, it's dirty, there are layoffs, the pay is horrible. And we keep that stigma going with our own kids. Like, oh, you don't want to go into manufacturing because it's, that's plan B.
Right.
And what we're really trying to show and really flip the stigma with, and we'll get into it more on this call today, is that the careers that are in manufacturing and the pay that you can get. And if you were to kind of path along between going straight into manufacturing out of high school with maybe a certification or some sort of a certificate, or 2-year with tech, nothing wrong with 4-year, but we need to start talking that they're all equal paths.
Absolutely.
And you can come out making out of high school, with starting at 50,000 and going up from there into middle management over 100, never mind continuing ed and
right.
It's a tremendous pathway that is not talked about, or there's a stigma that's keeping the story from being told.
And really, what we find in our business, because we do a lot of hands-on work, right? So we do mold finishing, and that's polishing work. That's not something that they're going to build robots for, or lasers for, or anything that's going to be able to do that, because it's craftsmanship. It's hands-on craftsmanship. And there is going to be a market for that position forever. As long as there's plastic, and as long as there's lenses, as long as there's fine medical equipment, there's going to be a market for it. So if you're looking for a job that is recession proof, for lack of a better word, or looking for a profession that they're not going to do rounds of layoffs, it's this kind of industry. Because what 2020 proved to me is this is essential. Manufacturing is essential in this country, and we can't rely on people from outside of our world to have to supply us with the things that we need. And it's been awesome. Cheryl Richardson from Punch Industries is on with us on LinkedIn, and she says Gen X impression. It's awesome. It's super cool. So I love Cheryl, and
hey Cheryl.
She's been into our plant a few times, and it's good to see her online. So if you're just joining us, say hello to us in the chat. Let us know who you are, what company you're with, and we can give your company a shout out and be part of what we're doing. So how did you develop this passion for that next generation of worker?
So working with youth, we do a lot of with the ad agency that I was part of, leading that for 25 years. We did a lot with college students and high school students. So we've been just that passion around, they make us feel young. They keep us young, and they're fun. And it's really just enjoyable to be around youth. And those formative years these are people that are going to be running the world, changing the world, innovating. And so to see them at these early stages, and what they think and what they do and the words that they say and what they're playing and looking at, is just fun to be around. And so for us with Gen Z, it's just kind of that aha generation of, here we see the challenges of, we've been working with economic development, workforce, manufacturing for 25 years. And every year it's, well, what are we going to do about workforce? What are we going to do to market, to get more recruiting in for workforce? And so we're like, wait a minute, this generation actually thinks differently and want to learn from the doers and are quick learners. They're going to go to YouTube to fix a car. My own
Yep.
son totaled his car and rebuilt his car through YouTube. And so they want to learn right away. And so it was like this generation of there's a solution with this generation to the challenge that we run into. And so that was that aha moment of, now, what is it that we can use with that generation to look at how we can solve having the same conversation for 25 years. And so that's when it started to all come together.
I think from what I've seen in my short time in manufacturing, right, is that it's victim to, it's the way we've always done it, so it's the way that we should continue to do it, right? And
Yeah.
there's a hesitancy to allow new ideas to come in, because that's not the way we do it. But the way we do it is not necessarily working. And I love the idea of engaging people where they're at, right? Not expecting them to change to who you are to fit your quote unquote mold, but to meet them where they're at, and want them to come into being part of our community, our industry, our space.
Yeah. We were finding, because we work with a lot of states and regions and economic development groups, and it's been a lot of website work or videos, which are great tools. They're digital. People have access to them. But we're finding that was a lot of what it was being done everywhere. The challenge with that is you have to get the people to come to it.
Yep.
And then on top of that, there's terminology, and then they have to navigate. And I'm in the industry, and a lot of times you get to these sites and I think, how would someone ever navigate this if they were just coming to it? Or with a video, you watch it one time and then they're gone. You have no engagement with them as an industry. If you're a company or a state or a region, they watch it. Hopefully,
right.
Gen Z isn't necessarily going and watching industry videos. They're watching, cat videos and
they're not even good cat videos. Let's be honest.
So true. There are a couple good ones. I'm a cat lover. But it's really, they're investing money into activities like this, which are great tools. But the challenge is that it is the same old, and this generation wants to be more engaged with, and they want more of the cutting edge tools that they're using.
Yep.
And so it really does have to change.
Yeah. And one of my favorite people in South Carolina is Hunter Gibby. Gibby works at United Tool and Mold, and he jumped on the Facebook show, and he says he started at United Tool and Mold his junior year of high school as an apprentice. He graduated in 2014. UTM sent him to obtain his associate's degree in CNC programming and operations. Now he runs the laser welding, laser engraving department, and he's been there for 7 years. So how is that for that exact thing that we're talking about, right? Taking somebody that has a passion for learning and working and investing some time, money, and resources in him. And now, Gibby's a young guy running the department. And he says he's listening to this while he's running our Alliance welder. So,
all right, Gibby.
Now he's multitasking too, right? So he's listening, he's watching, he's working. Scott, leave him alone. He's doing okay. He doesn't, he's not watching. He's actually welding and paying attention. So don't go yell at Gibby.
They are multitaskers. You know what I love about Gibby's story is the apprenticeship model, right?
Yeah.
So back in the day, apprenticeships were a thing, up in Michigan, that was the way. They had the schools associated with the industries, and that was how you would get in and grow and learn. Well, apprenticeships still have always been Gibby, bear with me as I use this term because I don't think this or believe this, but has been thought of as a plan B option. Sure. Oh, apprenticeship, that's wonderful. So you're not going to 4 years, what you're saying, that's the conversation. But apprenticeships, a lot of what's happening in schools, and you've got guidance counselors that are just not familiar with these pathways. So they don't know how to tell the story like what Gibby had. Gibby obviously had someone in his life that understood it and shared it, and it has impacted his life. So if we can help with, helping with the awareness, so guidance counselors, parents can have these conversations of, hey, when you're in high school, you don't know what you want to do really, you know? And so
No.
you're going to start to pay 20, 40,000 a year to try and figure it out. And the truth is, like we've already said this, you can do really well in any field. And with, if you just knew sooner. So we can help middle schoolers start to be aware of the different pathways and early in high school before you're kind of pushing out into this pathway that there's no return,
Yep.
and also arm them with the awareness of the terms and the careers in the industry. So a
Yep.
middle schooler could say, to you, Tony, or to me, or to their guidance counselor, hey, what is this automotive manufacturing? What is advanced manufacturing? What is aerospace or life sciences? And, and helping them start to know these terms to kind of set their own path, and start to
Yeah.
make choices rather than be pushed by what everybody else thinks is the right thing.
Yeah. And, I had a small experience with that. My son was in middle school. He's 14 now. He's in high school. And in his 8th grade year, I think. Yeah, 7th grade year, because I think 8th grade was this wonky thing where COVID started and everything. So there was really nothing 8th grade year. But his 7th grade year, they had like a career day kind of thing where they brought in parents to talk about their job and what they do. And, they had everybody. They got bankers, they got, entrepreneurs, they've got all these people. And he asked me if I would do it. And I was like, yeah, but we're going to do something cool. So we talked to the teacher. We brought in a laser engraving machine, and instead of sitting there and just like droning on about something, I just had the kids ask me questions. I gave them the smallest little brief introduction to what manufacturing looks like and what that means, and told them, listen, you guys are going to manufacture something today. So we brought in little flashlights, and we had all of the kids come in, type their name in the laser engraver, and run their own part and see how easy that was. And it was awesome. I mean, it was such a good experience for me, for the kids, and they had great comments, great questions. And it was something tangible that they could see and do and understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. We just launched one of our first games back in February, and just to add on to your story there of that purpose that we have with the gaming is that awareness, right? So
Yeah.
it was California, Inland County, and kudos for them for thinking differently during a COVID time. And it was really, they wanted to do something around STEM and cyber security with with the students. This is 4th through 8th graders. So we were like, what can we put in this game to start that awareness? Sort of like what you did on that, career day.
Yep.
And so in the game, there is, after you finish a challenge, did you know that you could earn, with those cyber skills, up to 113 and beyond $1,000, and that there are almost 2,000 jobs waiting for you to come in and take the job, and you can do it online in 25 hours or down the street at this university for 2 years.
Right.
And so, and then like we were watching all the focus groups do the testing and everything like that, and when they get to those, you hear them go, I can make that much money doing this. Where do I go? And then just to start to hear what's not being seeded. There's a lot of education that has happened in school throughout the day, but when you get them in play and they start to bring in this awareness of what the future could look like, but let them be inquisitory about it, and what could it be for them, and start to find those interests and feed them with like, hey, did you know this, that,
Yeah.
really
And
helps.
Jonathan Quinn is on LinkedIn watching, and Jay Quinn Packaged. He was on the show a few weeks ago, and he's big on diversity and introducing new people to the marketplace, to the industry, and how we do that and what that looks like, whether that's women, whether that's minorities, whether that's young people, and just changing, like we're saying, the focus and the direction of how we do things. And, I would love to hear his input or have him chime in as well. But I think what you're saying is exactly true. I was talking with my son. I talk to my son about everything that happens at work. I mean, it's just what we do. And I was telling him how it's like finding a rare dinosaur unicorn, to have somebody that wants to do this kind of stuff, that knows how to do this stuff. And it's impossible, because it's a dying breed of veteran workers that are almost at retirement age.
Yeah.
And so we have to find ways, and what you're doing is exactly that, is to bring in that next generation of people and start training. I look at business like running a sports team, where you can't continue to build your team by free agency and bringing in veteran players. You have to grow some of your own players. You have to have rookies. You got to have patience with them. You have to put them in a feeder program and get them up to the point where they can get in the game and start
Yeah.
making you money. And so I talked to my son about this, and he said, "So wait, you said that it's really hard to find these people, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "And they make good money?" I said, "Yeah, they make pretty good money." And he said, "Can I do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can absolutely start doing that. Like, you can come in this summer and you can start learning certain things, and we can start teaching you the ins and outs of the business. And then every summer that you're off or spring break, you can come in for a little while, you can learn some stuff. And then by the time you graduate high school, now you have a choice, right? You can go to college and learn some business stuff, and then you can come in and have a head start in our business, because you'll know how to do all the different things.
Yeah.
Or maybe you decide that that's not what you want to do, and you want to come in and run one of the departments, or you want to keep doing what we're doing. That's fine. But just the fact that he had that interest and that aha moment, like he says,
Yeah.
"Will I make more by you than I would at like Chipotle?" And I was like, "Yeah, you will. And you'll have set hours, and you won't be working nights, and you won't be working weekends, and you'll be able to hang out with your friends at that time. And it'll be, 7 till 3 or whatever it is, 6 till 3. And then you'll have the rest of the time off. You can do whatever you want." And he was like,
Yeah.
"How come people don't do this?" And I was like, "I don't know."
I know, I know. We're working on it. We're working it. So, like for boomers, like when you think about, you just said, you hit it, the retirement, everyone that's moving out of the field, 10,000 a day of boomers are aging into retirement for the next 14 years.
Yeah.
You have all this wealth of knowledge. Now, they might be stuck in some of their ways, as we all know from our own parents and how they do things or certain ways, but they have this wealth of knowledge that they can transfer and come alongside and mentor this next generation coming in. So we want to be smart that we're keeping them engaged, before they retire, or coming back in as mentors and working alongside this next generation. But when I
That
think about,
tribal knowledge is critical.
oh
You
my God,
cannot lose that tribal
critical.
knowledge.
No, and maybe they have a different way of doing it. Obviously, in some different manufacturings that we're moving a lot of to the tasks are moving to automation. And that's where soft skills comes in and the need for that. But
Yep.
still, the knowledge of how it works, like even when I was in advertising in the old school days, we would do like Ruby Lith, and
Yeah.
like it wasn't all the computer. And to this day, when I was with our team, I would make our team like go through the practice of like sketch it out and
Yes.
show how, if you can't make it work on paper, it's not gonna play
No.
well on digital. So let's prove it up front on paper. And they'll be like, all right, let's get our sketchbooks out because Tina wants to see, but it works. And
And
so,
sometimes they don't understand that, because I worked with someone, and I would tell them, "I want you," and I didn't even go so far as sketch. I said, "I want you to go in Illustrator, and I want you to build out the website layout in Illustrator, just the page structure. Like, you don't need
wireframe,
to
yeah,
draw it, but I want you to do it in Illustrator." And they said, "Well, why can't I just do it in Divi, and then we'll just make it work?" And I said, "Because then you're limiting yourself to what you think Divi can do instead of what we actually want this to be. So let's decide and design what we want it to be, and then figure out how to make that happen. And if we
yeah,
don't like something in this phase, it's really easy to change, because you're just moving around boxes at that point. You're just making easy changes, but you have to understand the basics and the concepts before you get to the final product."
agreed, agreed. And then we can adapt to our personalities and how we work and move in that way. One thing you said too, when your son was like, well, how do you find the people? I was just thinking to like an example of what happens in manufacturing. Maybe anybody that's listening now or that will listen to this down the road and it's recorded, we see a lot of reactive recruitment. Like, we need people today. Like,
Right.
this plant is opening and we need the people today. And so money is invested in job fairs for all. Like, let's get
Yes.
them all in, and then let's pay for the training And then we bring them in, and within the first week they leave, they walk out the door.
Yes.
And there's that high turnover that everybody feels the pain of, like, what can we do to stop that? And so one part of the skills gap mode is that when you start to get those interests, like you're talking about, a student could be interested in something, or they're through an apprentice, or your son comes into the plant, we start to see that there's an interest. Imagine what recruitment could look like if in the games that, or, we start to see where their interests are. And now an industry like automotive could actually target the 1,000 kids or 10,000 that are playing the automotive game and actually have interest. And we see that they keep playing, and now they can recruit from this qualified and invest in the training of them. And so that the turnover could be less. And so now your bottom line, could be put more into what are we doing with our culture and with our employees for training ongoing, versus trying to get them in. Let's be more proactive in recruiting a better qualified, interested workforce.
Yeah, I agree.
That has that passion.
I agree. Tracy Dozier is on LinkedIn.
Tracy.
Yeah, I apparently you know her. That's good. She says technology and skills go hand in hand. We're now in the fourth industrialization. Parents need to be informed early of opportunities. Gaming is skills needed in multiple industries. She is a consultant and native Detroiter, and now Greenvillian.
Let me tell you what, Tracy has been preaching, going to the youth long before anybody else.
Yeah.
She's fantastic, and her knowledge of what's happening in Michigan and in South Carolina has just been, I've loved learning alongside of her, and she's always been encouraging of, hey, did you know this? Or this is what's happening. So it's good to have her listening in today.
Yeah. Danny Freeman is he's a Georgia guy. He's out in Atlanta. He just had another baby too.
He's probably in traffic calling in.
What's that?
He's probably sitting in traffic calling in.
It's possible. Yeah. He says apprenticeship programs, get them introduced earlier, high schools, if not sooner, and throw them some small benefits. Again, I agree. Jonathan Quinn says we have to light the fire in the younger people to enable the sustained greatness of plastics and packaging. We need mentors that embrace being asked why.
Yeah.
All super true, right?
Yes. Yeah. You know what I love, and I'm going to brag on South Carolina, but this is happening everywhere. The apprenticeship programs are really moving down to the youth, and our state does a really good job at how, they've just gotten some grants from the federal government on what we're doing with the Apprenticeship Carolina, and really pushing it down to the youth apprenticeships. The challenge we run into in some areas, and this is going to be, there's always going to be challenges, but we always need to be looking to how do we actively make the opportunity available to all. When you get into rural areas, Allendale, South Carolina, and whatever your state is, just picture the rural area. In California, we work with the Inland Empire, but how do we reach all of them where there isn't an apprenticeship right down the street, or maybe they don't have access to transportation to get to an apprenticeship? How can we give them the same experience through let me tell you, this is a question for everybody in the chat. How many Gen Z has access? What percent of Gen Z has access to a phone, a mobile phone? Just think for 1 second, answer it in your head. 98% of Gen Z has access to a phone, wherever they are, rural, inner city.
And they don't put it down.
They don't put it down. They're on it. I mean, the stats before COVID, I can't even imagine now.
Right.
But ages 13 to 17, which is our sweet spot, middle school and high school range, it's 95% have access to a phone. And then another interesting stat that we could talk about is how many of that same generation would you think are gamers? What do you think, Tony?
I'm going to say 90%.
Gosh, did you read my stat ahead of time?
I didn't, but
I would never have said that before we got into it. I probably would have said like 40, 60, but 90% classify themselves as active gamers. That's female male, so that's, if we look about how do we reach, all of those students. And so apprenticeships, we'd love to see where you can do like a pre-apprenticeship program through a gaming app that you can start to, our ultimate level is you're getting certified and certifications that can be done through an app that take you right into the workforce. So if you are in a rural opportunity zones, even inner city, you've got the same access and
Yep.
opportunity as everybody.
Yep.
And really, this is the tool that can do it.
So one of the questions was, you mentioned the phones, right? Are
Right.
those standard mobile phones that are just like flip phones where they just make phone calls, or are they smartphones where this actually applies?
Smartphones.
Yeah.
Now we are going to run into broadband, right? So we're going to
Sure.
run into that. That is, COVID has really been doing the work though with funding that comes in that's working on that. You've got Elon Musk that's putting satellites up in space for helping to improve this. So it's moving quickly. But mobile technology versus like a console with, pulling the Wi-Fi through the house gives
Absolutely.
us more freedom to be able to push that out.
And Jonathan Quinn, two things. He says the stat that you mentioned came from a Clemson guy, and that more people 18 and under have access to smartphone than have driver's licenses.
That's true. They want us to drive us, my own kids. When I turned 16,
I couldn't wait to leave.
I was like a freedom. I was in line. I passed my test. I had studied, and it was like freedom.
My mom took me for my test. I dropped her off and said bye.
Same. My little Volkswagen Rabbit. And then, my kids, I'm like, at 15, it's, you're 15, you can be driving and all, permit and all. And it's like, why would I do that when I can sit in back and have you chauffeur, driving Miss Daisy
and play games in the car.
Yeah, they're playing games in the car.
So that's exactly the point, right? They want more time on their apps and the games and screens and all of that stuff. So they don't want to drive.
I know. As a parent, I have three. I've got a 23, 19, and 17.
Okay.
Two of which are serious gamers. And they were adopted, so they came in at an older age, and they would spend, when we were kids, we're like, get outside. And so when they came on, like, you're gonna get outside. You're gonna build a fort. You're gonna sled when we have our one snow day in South Carolina. But they don't.
Right.
You don't see the kids going through the neighborhood, out playing like we were on bikes and building forts and, uphill both ways in a foot of snow. But what they do, what you see is you do see relationship and engagement building through the game. Just the interaction and it's new, it's different. Before I would have been like, oh, what have we done to these kids?
Right.
But honestly, I think we're going to see a lot of good. And I think it has probably saved a lot of lives over the last 2 years with COVID.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and I know with my own son, when COVID first started, right, we would kind of get on him a little bit, like, come on, man, more video games, like, stop. I know there isn't that much to do right now, but come on. And it was his way to engage with his friends. So like they would jump on a game together, and they were playing together. Like, I think the days of, you or I, where you would play Pac-Man or Mario Brothers or something. It's like two players. That's it. Right. And you can't wait for that person to die because you're bored waiting for them to die so that you can have your turn again. Well, they're actually playing together and engaging together and talking while they're playing. And that's their together time. They have so much more of that than we did. And there's, Jurassic Park, the world game, or Pokemon, or whatever it is. Now there's teams, and they're teaching people cooperation. They're teaching people teamwork. They're teaching people to ask for building relationships in an online way. Hopefully they're safe relationships in an online way. Agreed. And that's a thing that, that's a teaching thing that parents have to do. But, I know when my son is playing, right, he's part of a team that's trying to do X, Y, and Z, and somebody will send him a message and say, hey, I see you have a lot of this. Can I borrow some of that? I'll trade you this. And it's teaching skills that I think people don't realize are skills.
Yeah,
it's not just all stupid video game screen time. Some of it is good. Now, there are the bad cat videos on YouTube, and you can go down a horrible rabbit hole of watching just crap on YouTube. Let's be honest. But there is a lot of good, I think, that comes out of games and gaming and doing that in a healthy way.
Yeah. And so with like the skills development so we've got the AAA games, which are, everything that your kids are playing on Xbox or the console. And then we have the mobile app games, which
Yep.
Among Us, Pokemon Go, all of those, you are learning the soft skills, like you said, but there's not the tracking of that they can transfer it into, looking at their next career and how they can show, hey, these are my skill strengths.
Yep.
So with Skillsgapp, if you look at how the badges can be earned and then translated into a program like a LinkedIn, so you can start to see, or you go to your job and you can show, here's my strengths and my report, a
Yep.
data analytics on where my strengths are and what I can bring to the company is really game changing for the industry. But it's exciting, with the kids playing. I just love gaming now more than as a parent early on, and how I would be like, turn it off.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you're in a unique perspective, right? Because you've created Skillsgapp, which is gaming. So at some point you want kids playing more games. And I think as long as they're the right games, it makes sense. Nobody's saying go crazy with Grand Theft Auto.
No, yeah, no, not. Yes, exactly. Here's an interesting stat for the listeners, just to think about in your head too. But so when you think about parents encouraging their kids, anybody listening that's a parent, to go into manufacturing, and it's just kind of like, unless you're really in it and you understand what's happening with it, it's not going to be the first thing that comes up. So 70% of parents would not encourage their kids to go into manufacturing. 70%.
My father was one of them.
Isn't that funny? Isn't your dad like part of the company?
He started the company.
That's hilarious. So, oh my goodness. So he's started the company, he's in it, and he's the one that's encouraging like to go, at that age when you're younger.
Yeah.
Now flip that. Okay, here we go. 70% of parents encourage their kids to game. Love that they game.
Really?
So, yes, that same stat flips. 70% discourage manufacturing, 70% encourage gaming.
Huh.
So, yeah, it's a great statistics. I love the flip on that. So imagine if it was like career gaming, and now you're, it's fun, the level of fun that the kids are playing with Among Us and Pokemon Go, that it's that level of fun, not that you open it up and it's like flip to page 3 of educational learning.
Sure.
There's a lot of that out there. There's great things out there by Discovery that are exciting and really good on websites, and a lot of educational learning from other companies. But kids love to play.
Yeah.
And through play, they learn to create and innovate. And so if we can bring that into a more fun type of play, I think the outcome could be a generation that radically moves manufacturing, innovation. And, even with, Department of Defense, you think about you're working on all these remotes, which you can't get your hands on now because the kids are breaking them all from playing games and throwing them during COVID. But
which means we got to work on temper tantrums still.
Yeah. Or I should have invested in remotes, and I should have stocked them up in my garage and sold them. And I would be on this podcast today. I'd be somewhere else. But the all the, with everything moving to tasks going to automation and things like that, what they're learning on their phone and how to move things around, or even on the console gaming remotes, is really what you'll be using in industry. They're going to be using the iPads and their phones throughout plants and automative tasks, whatever, aerospace, life sciences, automotive, cyber. They're on playing games right now. And so it really makes a nice transition for them. Like, hey, you love what you're doing and playing here. Now you get paid. Of course, they could get paid for gaming too, but there's a way to make a living in what you do and you have fun doing.
So Kyle Clouda from MSI, South Carolina company, Iowa company. He has a couple thoughts. He says, how can gamification be used in the next generation of tool makers specifically? I understand the concept with some trades, but outside of attention, how do you see this working for myself, for a company like Alliance? So can you describe some of the games that Skillsgapp has and what those look like and what they teach?
Yeah. So for Skillsgapp, we customize the games per states, regions, or industry, because there really are specific needs. What one state needs for their workforce to have, another state may not need the exact specific. But if we get into his question about actual within his industry, you can get into a game that, incentives and rewards are wonderful. And so if they're learning the probably adaptability and accuracy would be really important in his line of work with that manufacturing. And so you actually can have a game that is building towards whatever that tool is, or if it's like with your company, with the mold and how you're working with refining and all, you can gamify that in a fun way, but that still builds rewards and teaches that accuracy, like an online training. It may not be the exact same photo of the mold or whatever that tool might be, but you gamify it. So it's the same thing. If you have someone that's putting together, I can't think of a part right now off the top of my head, but if they were to be, you have to build it in a certain way.
Sure.
And if you don't accurately put that piece in where it needs to go and you break it, it could be several $1,000s, every time a piece is broken and you have to, you've got the line that's going, that's just in time. And so those games can teach that accuracy and reward it. And then each time, if they don't do it right and they do it another time and it's a fun way, they're learning to get more accurate. And you reward that within game, whether it's just the perks of the benefits or they get to certain levels and they earn whatever the company wants to incentivize with,
Sure.
or if it's pre-employment, recruitment type of training and stuff like that. You could do fun things with, for us, you can do all sorts of things from a state or a region offering a semester at a tech school to go through some certification, or really fun, you could offer one of the cars that you're building in your state, or a flight on a first off the ground new engine or something. But within industry, you can even do little perks like phone bills or
Sure.
free phone, or some in-game, all sorts of incentives to encourage that. So you can get very specific. I think for industry, what happens is you get introduced to changing how you're recruiting, and you look at something like this, and until you start to see it play out, you're not really sure all the uses that you could do with it. But then as you start to see how it can be used, and you can be constantly engaging and loading in new data just in real time, then you start to innovate, like, wow, we could do this with it, or we could add this to it, or start to track this among the users. And those analytics are powerful and competitive. If you're a company and you're competing for workforce with just down the street, because a lot of manufacturers are all within the same mile, just think about the competitive advantage that you can have as a state against another state, to be able to say, hey, here's what we're doing with our workforce and taking care of our existing industry. Or if you are an industry and you're competing against others in aerospace or automotive, life sciences, to be able to say, we're doing this for our company and our industry, and it's a tremendous competitive advantage.
Yeah. So Kyle had another question, and I thought the same thing when you said it about 70% of parents are encouraging gaming and things like that. He says it's confusing because he doesn't hear many folks encouraging gaming for kids, and I don't either. I hear a lot of parents complaining about it. He says, there's a lot of videos on TikTok or things like that of parents unplugging Xboxes and saying that's enough. And then there's also the concern that I've heard a lot of, and well, this was before COVID and they made all the schools go to Zoom, but the dangers of too much screen time and what that does to kids. So how do you balance the dangers of screen time with gaming for purpose?
Yeah. Well, if you think about COVID, right? And these stats are just the latest kind of can't think of the term. Anyways, they're just out.
Right. They're new. There's not much you can go with. We got a year of data.
Yeah. So, but you are looking at where, unfortunately, every moment of their life is screen time right now, right? Every bit of learning, and then their playtime is screening. But if game playing is creativity and innovation, that's where that stat is supported with that the creativity that's learned through that.
Okay.
Now, as far as the question of like, how do we balance that out with screen time? I don't know what we're going to do with the generations. It is something that we weren't, my generation didn't have the phone or anything. And so we had alternative. You're looking at Gen Z that doesn't know life without technology. And then you've got this generation coming right behind them already, Gen A, Generation Alpha. And, you know, the parents are putting iPads in their lap right away. And so I think we need to look at more about it is what the world is.
Right.
How do we use it for good? And we say higher, you know, how can we use gaming for a higher purpose? HIRE. Let's start taking what is there and what can we do good with it?
Sure.
What can we do good with data? You know, if you start to read privacy policies on these gaming apps or any app you download off your phone, and I encourage everybody to read what you're signing and agreeing to when you download apps for even avatars and things on your phone. You want to be doing what's right for students and making sure that we're moving them in good directions. And so I think as parents, as industry and all of that, we look at, hey, they're going to be doing it and playing with it. What can we do to help make them better people, move them to better places through these journeys that they have on technology? I think that's what I would say to his question is, how do we, it's there, they're going to use it. How do we provide better purposes with it?
Yeah. And I think for kids, my opinion is technology is not bad. Social media is not bad. Games are not bad. They are platforms. And if you can put the right content in the right platform, you've just created something that's amazing. Because they enjoy that and that's what they want to do. And that's what they're going to watch. Right. So, you know, there are a million videos out there. There's a million podcasts. There's a million everything. But I think ours is a little bit different. And I think it meets a different dynamic and a different purpose than other things. I think it's got some positivity and some content that might be useful for people. So I would encourage people to listen to it versus some things that I might think are not worth listening to or might bring negatives to people's lives. I think the platform is not the bad guy.
Agreed. So if we can introduce people to things that they're passionate about and move them into a career that they can make money with, not into debt, right?
Right.
If the same tool could make communities better because the people that are in those communities now need places to eat and buy whatever it is from. So now these communities are better because the workforce had more opportunity, but it was all positive. So like what you're saying, I think how can we make an impact for a better community, a better state, a better nation?
And I think we're looking at parents that are now mid to late 30s, right? That we're talking about. That these are the parents that they've had smartphones most of their lives for, you know, lesser extent, or at least a cell phone. And I think those parents are probably a little bit less, crazy is not the word, but militant about, you know, this technology is bad. And so I think there's going to be an embracing of that when you realize what they're actually doing, how they're playing, what they're learning. You know, it's not like we talked about before, right? It's not the Grand Theft Autos or just playing Mario Brothers where you're running through the same thing and droning on. But even that had some problem solving. Kevin Lab, I think that's it. Lebby, you tell me if I'm right or wrong. He said he was joining late. He's on LinkedIn. He said apprentice programs, we're going back a little bit, need to be driven by both educational institutions and local manufacturing companies through all 4 years. As the old National Tool, Die, and Precision Machine Association was back in the day. The companies knew the time they put into apprenticeship would pay off via controlled wages, and knowing the other companies would not take away an apprentice before they became a journeyman. Not sure how that's handled today. Yeah, I agree that I think when people went away from wanting to work with their hands, wanting to get a skilled paying job, when they left, there's just no reason to do apprenticeships. And I think part of the problem, and this is an issue, you know, I don't want to keep you too long today, but I think one thing that is a concern to us that I've talked with the teachers at McHenry High School and other teachers and other people in shop classes. And the concern is always, how do you get the parents on board? Specifically the mothers on board with understanding that you know, Susie or Johnny may not be good at college, and there has to be another option for them. And it doesn't mean that that kid is less than or not as smart or whatever. How do you get the parents to understand that there's a career out there for their kid? They just have to be willing to embrace it and understand it.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of it is we're going to have the kids start the conversations
Mm-hmm.
because we have the stigma that we're trying to fight. And through the awareness that we could start to change if they're considering it and they want to look into it, maybe I need to start looking into what I need to advise them on. And so I think we really need to start looking at one, that we can arm the schools. I'm all for apprenticeship. The earlier we can start, the better, because loyalty is everything. You invest in somebody, you build loyalty. They want to stay with you. They want to be a part of it unless it discovered that it's not for them. But I think what we can look at is middle school. We need to start planting these seeds for apprenticeships, but then also arming them with the terms to start talking about. Think about when you're driving in the car with either a guardian or a parent or whatever, and you're like, hey, do you know that you can do this and do
Yeah.
this somewhere? And then it's like the parent might not know that at all. And then they start to Google because you want to be able to make sure that you know more than your child at all times. So you've got to like, now all of a sudden, like you're spurring the next, or your guidance counselors or your teachers to like
I think
discover.
guidance counselors is the key one. So the gentleman that I was talking to at McHenry High School, his name is Gaylord Rodman, and he's the manufacturing and welding instructor at McHenry Community High School, and he also does some things for the college. And he said his program is growing exponentially, but he's also got support. And part of what his class does, what his program is he does work placement. So the kids that graduate in whatever field of expertise that they're in, he has a board of directors and companies that he works with. And when somebody finds an aptitude in something, he reaches out to that company and he says, I have this kid, this is what they're good at. So he's actively doing job placement for his students in high school. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I went to Carmel High School in Mundelein. It's a Catholic school, and their claim to fame was college acceptance, right? We have this many kids graduating and this many kids go to college. And I think that's a barometer for success in high schools.
Agreed. It's the yard sign. It's opening your mailbox, pulling out the envelope. Yeah.
So how do we get schools to embrace, like, I've seen a couple companies do it where they have a signing day where, you have these kids and they're signing to work at XYZ manufacturing company, because that's something to be proud of, that you've got X percentage of kids that are going straight from high school to having a career.
Yeah.
And you're teaching those skills that are giving them life skills that they can be useful members of society right out of school. And I think that's something that we should be proud of and celebrate as well. But how do you get those schools to embrace that change, to promote that to the kids, to promote that to the guidance counselors, to promote that to the parents, and market that in a way that is a positive?
Yeah. And boy, now more than ever, is it going to have to shift?
Yeah.
Because you have kids paying a lot of money to be online learning. And so now it is like, what are the other options out there?
Yeah.
If that was our only option, what are the other options now? So it really is going to be the influencers at the schools, where it's the teachers become aware and the guidance counselors. So we've got to make sure that, states and regions are taking that on and making sure that those guidance counselors are educated on this, and that you've got plan A right here and you've got plan B, and we should be celebrating when they walk across that stage. If someone that becomes an electrician or a plumber, I have them come to my house and I write big checks to all of them.
Yes.
And they tell me they can't find anybody and that they can be making immediately $150,000, after a little bit of training. And so a lot of people go to school for 4 years and sit in a cubicle and might not make that same amount of money for 10 years. So I think we just really need to be celebrating that the child has found a path that they love,
Yes.
And we embrace that because I need someone working on my car that knows how it, but then I also might need a doctor operating on me that definitely needs a 4-year path and beyond. So I think we need to start embracing like, hey, my child built the car you drive.
Right.
My daughter built what went to Mars,
Right.
and really embracing all of that. And I think the schools really, middle and high schools, have to carry that weight of embracing all pathways and starting to do that. And there's some really good teachers, like the ones that have been mentioned on this call by people, and the ones that you've mentioned in high schools that are doing that job. And there's a lot of economic developers that are doing that. It just needs to be more. And I think this shakeup is going to be really good with COVID to help. That's the positive. We talked about
Yeah.
this being positive. The positive coming out of this is going to be that it will be forced to be shaken up. And that's
Yeah.
good.
And I think there's always good teachers. There's always good schools. There are those people that want to do more and go further and push their students. And then there's schools where they just want to teach what they're supposed to teach and move on. And
Yeah.
I think those teachers that expect more out of their students and they want to make it something more for them, not just you know tick a box that the 18 things that you're supposed to know to get an A, but actually challenging them and building confidence and a lifestyle for them. Those teachers should be applauded for all the stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think you can see that, right? You can find the schools that have those teachers there, and everything else. So how does Skills Gap work? How do people get the software? Is it an app? Is it downloadable? Is it specific to companies? There's so many questions, and I probably should have asked you that earlier, but I didn't.
That's like,
So
that's all right. Well, that's all right. We can always do this again too. But
yeah,
so it is where our target audience that we would be marketing to is to industries, states, and regions where they can customize one of our apps. We've got a base that we have built. It's not downloadable for all. In order to be successful and to compete against all the games that are out there, we really need to keep it at a state, regional level so that we can make it unique to the industries that are around there and reward with incentives to those industries that are there so that the kids will play and make it meaningful. Otherwise, they're going to go play among us.
sure.
So we've got to make it meaningful like that. And so that's how we've worked with partners that we've worked with already on launching a game. And then the ones that we're in works with right now is taking that base platform and either building it out with soft skills, and then we create the aerospace, life sciences, automotive, and cyber within those states. So there's
Okay.
all these levels that the kids can play with and then move on to certifications and certificates. Or like we just launched in San Bernardino and Riverside, Inland County, where it was just cyber focused with a couple of soft skills, communication, and critical thinking to be able to do that. So they can look at our website and reach out, but we do sell to a collaborative within a state or a region. There's federal funding, state
Sure.
funding, COVID funding that helps be able to launch something like this. States right now do buses that have been upfitted,
Yeah.
websites, trade shows. Same amount of money that they're investing in those could be invested in a game that's ongoing, engaging, data analytics, and can be updated in real time as industry shifts. So that's what I would look at. If you're in an industry within a state, is let's talk to the organization that's either automotive or
Okay.
aerospace or life sciences, and let's start a conversation. It helps with competitiveness, and it helps these kids that are really looking now, being behind a couple of years, we can move them forward. We work with the Department of, with education too. So there's a couple of options with that.
Yeah. So how do people get a hold of you, or how do they get more information about Skills Gap?
Sure. So they can go to skillsgapp.com. It is app with 2 P's when you spell that out. And we named it that way specifically because it is the challenge and the solution all in one word. Skills gap, we've been saying for as old as time that that's the biggest problem. And then now we can present skills gap with the
Yeah.
app in it to solve that problem. So skillsgap.com, and you can email me at any time, Tina Z, like zebra, at skillsgap.com. I'd love to have conversations with anybody, even just sharing some challenges and what we've seen, and just start a conversation.
Yeah, that would be great. So We're right at the 1 hour mark. That's usually around our goal. But we got a little bit of time left. I don't want to rush it, but if anybody has any prayer requests or anything that they would like us to pray for you, I know it's rare for a manufacturing company and a manufacturing podcast and show, but the show first and foremost is about positivity and encouragement and trying to bring things to the world that I think this world needs. And right now, more than ever, it's more prayer. So if you've got a prayer request, go ahead and put that in the chat. And Tina, do you have any prayer requests that we can put on point for now?
I would say, we're about youth. We're about that generation. And so I think the youth has had a lot of challenge. If anybody needs prayer, it is them. You've got, foster kids that are at home. You've got kids that were school as their escape. You've got, just a lot of things that the youth with their friendships, relationships, that they're at home. And so I think praying for them is a really good focus since we're talking about youth today.
I would agree with you. Hunter Gibby had another thought for you. He says, what if you could find local career centers within your state and offer a type of game to where you supply the machining classes with a print each week or each month? Each part is made to go on an actual mold. At the end of the year, they will have all the parts made to have built an actual injection mold. Maybe even run each tool built. Whichever makes the best part wins.
Reach out to me because we have some augmented reality interesting things that could be interesting. Email me, Tina Z.
Gibby, look at you with the ideas. God, I love you, man.
I love it.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of shows coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next week will be Wisconsin Engraving. Pete Camboris will be on, and he does some awesome things. And we are all booked through April. I think we're booked through March and most of April. We're talking to a lot of the rising stars that were named by Plastics News. So that's exciting. Those younger, new people in the industry that can also tell success stories, and hopefully we can get those out to other people. So, I appreciate everybody listening and passing this stuff on. So, if you don't have anything else, I'll pray for us, and then you can be on your day. And I really appreciate talking to you.
Same.
All right. So I'm going to keep looking at the chat. So if there's anything that anybody has, go ahead and put that in there. But I just want to say, Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for Tina and her passion for the youth and the training that they need. Thank you for continuing to bless us in ways that we have no idea that you're even doing. It's amazing that even in a time where people are scared for their jobs, for their lives, for their health, that there are good things that are continuously coming out of there. And we know that's by your hand and by your doing. So we just ask that you would continue to keep us safe, that you would watch over us, that you would continue to provide for us, and that there would be blessings to everybody that listens to this now, later, in the future, and anybody that they know. So we love you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Tony. I've enjoyed today.
Oh, me too, immensely. And you know what's great is this is the first time we ever talked, and it's like talking to an old friend. So I appreciate your authenticity and really all the things that you're doing in trying to build this new technology for new people in our workforce. We need it. It's a real need. And there's it's a cartoon called Robots, and the gist of the cartoon is they're robots that invent things, and they're trying to figure out what to invent, and they keep saying, find a need, fill a need. That's how you know you have a good product. And I think that you've identified a serious need and finding ways to fill it. So thank you for all that you're doing with that.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch again soon for sure. Our journeys are now connected.
That's right. So I'm going to let you go, and then I'm going to sign us out of here. So thank you for everything you did and for all your time today.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. All right, everybody, I just want to thank you once again for watching the Manufacturing Alliance podcast. I think we had some really good stuff today, but that's just me. If you like the show, go ahead and send us a message, send us some comments, send us an email at tony@alliancelasersales.com. And if you'd like to be on the show and tell your story and be part of this, we'd love to have you on. This show is all about telling stories of other people, not myself. So on behalf of myself and Tina and Alliance Specialties in Laser Sales and Skillsgapp, I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Take care and God bless.